You hear it everywhere now. Set boundaries, hold your boundaries, defend your boundaries. Someone always crossing yours, and apparently it's on you to push back harder, speak up sharper, draw the line louder. And somewhere in all of that, we picked up a quiet belief that having boundaries means willing to be rude. That's if you're not a little cold, a little sharp, a little unbothered by how the other person takes it. You must not have real boundaries here. I want to challenge you today because in my work, I've seen something very different. The people who are rudest about their boundaries are almost always the ones who don't actually have them yet. And the people who have real boundaries, you'd barely notice. There is nothing to defend. If you have to be rude to enforce a boundary, you don't actually have one. You have a fight, and the fight isn't really with the person in front of you. It's with the part that still doesn't believe you're allowed to have one. I'm Kateryna Samuelson, and I coach high-performing people who can hold their company together but still freeze when it's time to say no to the wrong person. This channel is about inner mechanics that happen underneath the advice you've already heard 100 times. And today we're talking about rudeness that so many of us mistake for the boundary and for the strengths. And actually is a sign that you don't have the boundary yet and what to do instead of. So stay with me on this. So let's look at what actually rudeness is doing in this moment. Picture the last time you snapped while trying to say no. Maybe it was a family member who asked too much, a coworker who kept pushing past your bandwidth, your partner who said no, but it didn't come out clean. It came out with an edge. Sarcasm, maybe? A lecture? And the famous, I shouldn't even have to say this. The edge isn't the boundary. That's the cost of not having the one. Rudeness in those moments is doing three things at once. It's defending the limit, it's preempting the guilt, and it's trying to convince you, not them, that you actually have the right to say no in the first place. Sit with that. The hostility isn't really about the crossing the line. It's about you not yet trusting that you're allowed to draw it. And this isn't a character flaw. It's how regulation works. When researchers study what drives the snapping, reactive kind of aggression, they keep landing on the same thing. It's a sign the nervous system got overwhelmed in the moment, not a sign of strength. That's why your heart races. That's why hours later you're still replaying it. You weren't standing in something solid. You were fighting for the right to stand somewhere at all. Here's the giveaway. When the boundary is fully integrated and you finally gave yourself that permission to want what you actually want and to be who you are, you don't need the other person to agree with it. You don't need them to understand it. You don't need them to validate it. You can hold it whether or not they like it. The need to make someone agree with a no is the tell that that no is not fully yours. A real boundary doesn't require the other person's permission to exist. That's actually what makes them a boundary. When you still need them to get it, you're not really setting the boundary. You're negotiating. You're trying to win an argument inside yourself by getting them to play your side. There is a name for what's happening under. Psychologists who study autonomy describe it as a basic human need, the need to act from your own values instead of borrowing your own okayness from someone else's approval. When you haven't fully met that need on the inside, you reach for it on the outside. When you still need them to get it, you're not really setting a boundary. You're negotiating. So you're trying to win an argument inside yourself by getting them to play your side on it. There is a name for what's happening underneath. Psychologists who study autonomy describe it as a basic human need. The need to act from your own values instead of borrowing your okayness from someone else's approval. When you haven't fully met the need on the inside, you're seeking it from out. You make their agreement the thing that finally makes your no feel real. You make their agreement the thing that finally makes you no real. You make their agreement the thing that finally makes you no feel real. And rudeness It's what actually comes out when that reach fails. When the part of you is still saying no, you can't say no to them, and the other part just shouting it back. And the pressure of that internal fight leaks out as sharpness towards someone who often just asks you a question. So when you feel that sharpness rising, that's not a sign you finally have that boundary. It's a sign you have unfinished conversation with yourself. So what does an actually boundary feels like from the inside? Honestly, kind of boring. No charge, no build up, no rehearsing the script for days. When the moment comes, you say what's true for you and you move on. It's the same emotional weight as I prefer tea over coffee. It's just information about who you are. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. No, I won't be doing that. No explanation, no apology, no counterattack. No counter, no lecture about how they should have known better. Because when there is nothing left to prove to yourself, there is nothing to defend. A real boundary is not a wall that you're building to keep someone out. It's a clarification of who you are and what you want. It actually gives the other person something, a gift of knowing you and the choice of whether they want to meet you there or not. So that's the part most people miss. There is a whole school of communication, non-violent communication, built on exactly this line. The difference between a demand and declaration. A demand says you have to change. A declaration says here's what's true to me and here's what one carries pressure, the other carries information. Boundaries aren't the weapon you are using against people. They're an invitation into something honest. This is me. This is what I want. This is what I want to do. Now you get to choose what you do with this. That's not rude. That's clean. It's one of the most respectful things you can offer another human being. So here's what I want you to take from this. If you keep finding yourself snapping, lecturing, going cold, getting cutting, the work isn't to get better at being firm. It's more assertive scripts. It isn't practicing no in front of the mirror. The work is underneath all of that. It's giving yourself permission first. Permission to want what you want. Permission to be tired. Permission to disappoint someone. Permission to not explain. And permission to take up the space you actually take. But notice that permission doesn't come from getting harder on yourself. The research on this is clear in a way that surprises people. The inner posture that makes a clean no possible is self-compassion, not self-criticism. The people who can say no without hostility aren't the one white-knuckling. They're the ones who stopped treating their own needs as a problem to manage. Because here's the truth. Your tone is downstream of your permission. When you genuinely fully believe you're allowed to say no, your no comes out calm. When you don't, it comes out sharp, shake, apologetic, aggressive. The voice follows the inner agreement, always. So the question isn't to hold this boundary. The question is what part of me still doesn't think I'm allowed to have. And the part usually isn't an enemy to override. It's a younger version of you that learned somewhere that wanting things got you in trouble. You don't beat into silence. You get it to trust you. You don't need the better boundary script. You need to stop needing permission from anyone, including the version of yourself that learned somewhere along the way that wanting what you want was self. So a boundary isn't a fence, it's the shape of you. And when you know your own shape, when you've stopped arguing with yourself about whether you're allowed to take it, you don't have to defend it. You just leave it. And when you know your own shape, when you stop arguing with yourself about whether you're allowed to take it, you don't have to defend it. You just leave it. Where there are real boundaries, there is a choice and there is respect. There is a clear sense of who you are and what you want for both of you. So before you work on holding the line harder, check what's happening on your side of it. Because the work isn't out there. It never is. If you want to actually do this work, I built a short workbook that walks you through it. Boundaries without the edge. It's linked below, and take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.